generally two kinds of feedback. So some are very friendly, advice. Those are mostly coming from your PI or your team members, who really know your research and like who has something to work with you. So they are favorable to you, right? So, but I also find that like very strong feedback and then like sometimes a little bit harsh feedback as a positive way because actually most of those feedbacks improve my research project. Those I really get from the conference and then presenting at the combined lab meeting and talk with different PI and organizing the mentoring committee, something like that. So um, those those feedbacks or comments are really helpful to me to improve my research. And yeah, so I'm always open-minded and then accept whatever feedback they give me and then process through my own judgment and then whether I would like to pursue their suggestion or not. Yeah, that's
I like honest feedback. So when I've done something well, I like to be complimented on that so I can remind myself, okay, that's probably something I do relatively well, and the way I delivered this was good enough. So I will next time practice the same approach. At the same time, if there's something that I can improve on or change, I don't mind a little bit of tough love either, because I think ultimately, again, I need to remind myself, generally my supervisors are on my side, so they want me to be a better postdoc, a better academic, a better person. So just to remind myself that even it may sting a little bit in the moment, but they're probably doing it to improve myself. And the way I like to receive feedback is probably face to face. I mean, during the pandemic, everything moved online, but I think a lot is lost, even if it's a video conversation online, without the body language and clarification. So if it's something, particularly if it's negative feedback, I think it's better to receive it in person.
Most of the time, especially like when you're learning a new technique, I would ask if my mentor can just watch me do it once, yeah, so they can give me real time feedback, or you shouldn't be doing this way, or you can do it this way slightly better to improve this technique. Yeah, I can give examples of manuscript. I think like when my former mentor, gave feedback, like just writing a comment at the side of the manuscript. I think that will give me more time to process. If I'm speaking directly to him, like we're sitting down with the manuscript, I think it's more difficult to think on the spot. And yeah, so in terms of manuscript, I think I'll really prefer it to be written down so that I can be alone sitting down and I have more time to think about it. Yeah.
So I like to know that the effort that I've put forth has value, and that because it has value, we want to strengthen other parts of the person, of the research, of the whatever it is you're doing to make it better. So recognizing that what you've done is of value, and that because of that value, we want to make the other parts stronger. But I also think in like giving feedback, I like to say, if you're complaining, that's no fun to listen to. But if you're complaining with a way forward, like people will actually want to contribute and be involved. So in more of my different service efforts that I've done at NCAR, when I'm working in these different teams, I like to focus on like, what are we doing well? What is not going well, and how do I convey those two in a way that's receptive? And I think part of that is also recognizing just like I like to be mentored different, or I like to have feedback in a different style, that everyone that I'm working with will want things in a different way. And so it's also just kind of like common ground. What are we trying to achieve? And then working together with other people on the team. Yeah, and I think that's a challenge for any type of collaboration even is you might be working on the same project or the same research, whatever it is, but how you got there is going to be different. So like even with my coworker. He and I are postdoc on the same research project. So we're currently working on the same project, but our backgrounds are pretty different in what we were taught our schooling, but also how we were mentored during grad school was very, very different. And so when he and I work together, there's like this discussion of like, oh, this is a safe place. Like, we're not here to antagonize anyone. We're not here to pile on more work. Like, we're in control of this. So even with like your coworkers, like people who are your contemporaries, recognizing like you're mentoring them as well, even though it's not a formal mentorship.
Two things I've learned from two different bosses of mine. One is the compliment sandwich, which I like to receive, and I've noticed some of the students I work with as well. So you start with something positive. The meat of the email, or your verbal feedback, is constructive criticism, and then you end again with something positive. And generally, I've seen that it's received well, and it helps them improve. And the same for me. If I receive feedback like that, I'll be like, I see what you did there, I appreciate it, and I will make the changes. Another thing I've really liked, and this is particularly for negative feedback, is to both of the sides actually, to make a table about what went wrong, why it went wrong, and how to change that in the future. And I found that a very powerful tool with some students who maybe have lost their way a little bit, because it helps us pinpoint the root cause and then address that. Because sometimes, we go about our days and we're very hard on ourselves, and sometimes we're hard on others. So having those types of, first of all, brainstorming sessions of making this table, but then also going through that and discussing it, vice versa, you learn so much about what actually the conflict is about, and you're much more likely to solve it.
Am I giving feedback that is of value to whoever it is that I'm mentoring? And I think that's, just asking. That's like, does this make sense to you? That's more of like, does what I say intellectually make sense to you? But also it's like, does this meet what you are needing? And so, it all comes back to communication, but it's the style that you communicate, because there's, one thing that I haven't touched on at all is I'm a fully remote worker with my institution, and that's because, family needs, and my supervisor is fully supportive of that, but that also means that our mentorship has to be deliberate. Like, when we interact, it has to be like, okay, we're meeting bi-weekly. We also are meeting in our other research events. So we don't have like those one-offs, like, oh, walking down the hall and talking. And because I'm remote, I have to recognize that informal stuff I am missing out on. But that means when we do talk, there's a deliberate of like, how is it going? Just like even kill, how is it going? And then you dive into more. So I think in all of the questions that you've asked, there's also that layer like, are you a remote worker? Are you an in-person? Are you hybrid? The age difference between you and your supervisor, like, can you convene on, cultural commonalities? And if not, are there different ways that you need to be communicating such that like you can still have that relationship?